welcome back, everybody, to another podcast. I have no idea what we're going to call this one, but we have the director of PBR New York, Dan Cevette, with us today. How are you, man?
Good. How's it going, man?
I am good. Let's get at it right away. So I started a shit storm yesterday by calling out PBR for charging coaches to watch live streams. You and I seem to be of the same breed in that, hey, I'm not about burning bridges. I'm about talking things out. So first of all, I think maybe I can admit to being wrong about how I went about that, because I like PBR a lot. I have a lot of respect for PBR. I think you guys do it better than anybody else. And I don't think that I thought through exactly what I was explaining. So let me do that real quick so that you can respond to my original thought, okay? College coaches, I have heard from a couple of them that they don't want a package. They don't want to buy a $200 thing for the whole year. They just want to watch a guy or two at a local event, and they're being hit with an invoice for $200. So my thing is, I don't think that's fair, but go ahead and explain to me why that is fair.
Well, so first, I guess I'll say, number one, I only represent PBR New York and Pennsylvania, and so this is not a PBR national thing. When we kind of went to them, this was my idea about a month ago when I realized Division I they weren't going to be out and be able to recruit because of the dead period, and now the Division II got moved. So I kind of was trying to get in front of the situation. And you know, I have events in New York and PA that get 120 colleges. Last year, the New York State Games had 120 colleges present to watch the kids. So I knew that was going to be a challenge. It wasn't going to happen. So first and foremost, my goal was to, you know, find a way to continue to deliver a high-level event where I could guarantee college exposure was going to be there, not just through tweets. Twitter's great. We do a lot, and if you check now, we're crushing it in Pennsylvania right now. But we, you know, it's one pitch, it's one bat at bat. You know, if you need to see more. So, so my first thought was, how can we live stream it, and how can we do it professionally, not through Twitter or through Instagram, you know, Facebook. How could we do it at a little bit more of a professional level? And I was going to do it myself. Pennsylvania, New York. I was, you know, talking to 3 or 4 different streaming agencies, talked to PlaySite, talked to some other ones, just trying to get a, you know, a gauge of what was out there. And I was like, wow, this is like crazy expensive. Like, I didn't think it was going to be this expensive. We're in the middle of a pandemic, you know, you know, we don't have these kind of things built into our, you know, budget, especially we didn't have these things built into the budget, you know, before this happened. We were ready to go roll out our events and have colleges come. So it was a tough decision. What I did was I talked to some other state directors, owners, licensed owners in PBR that I was really, you know, comfortable talking with. And I said, hey, let's just kind of pull the resources together and the power, and let's get a bunch of states to do this. And, you know, if we can break even on it, great. But as it expanded, we ended up getting like 12 different, you know, states that wanted to jump in and do it. And, you know, so it's basically that we have a hosting service that, you know, that's actually who the college coach has to sign up through and pay, is the hosting service. And then they take their percentage. They have to be customer service, support, all those things. And then we buy the equipment. A lot of people don't know is the equipment is, you know, it's relatively, you know, expensive, like $500-600 per camera. You got to have all the power banks to keep them charged. I mean, we're going on 9 hours right now today in Pennsylvania, 2 different fields. That's 4 cameras. They get hot, they overheat, all those things. So you have to have all the equipment. You have to have hotspots that are monthly charges, about $130 a month. So each camera has to have its own hotspot. So it starts getting a little crazy, right? And it's something where we said, hey, we do have to charge the college coaches something. So we don't want to go out of bounds with it. We have to figure this out. You know, I'm not a guy that just shoots from the hip. I talk to several well-respected college coaches across the East Coast that I'm currently really close with. And when I talked to them about it, and then one thing I didn't mention was 10 years ago, I got out of playing professional baseball, and I went right in to be a Division I recruiting coordinator. So I was a D1 recruiting coordinator at a small school in the Northeast. This is you know, I did my homework on this. This is the interesting part. The recruiting budget for me was, you go keep your gas receipts. you go keep your hotel receipts, your food receipts, and then you hope 2 to 4 weeks later you got reimbursed. I had zero recruiting budget at a Division I school. So I was coming out of my pocket at age 25 out of pro ball, and I was broke. So I'm coming out of pocket trying to make a living in the game, being a coach, and that was just the way it was. That was what the situation was. So we fast forward to the current situation that we're in, where the coaches know they can't go out now. They still need to recruit, see players. That's their livelihood. We're a very, I believe, and I think you already said, extremely credible service from the top to the bottom. I think national headquarters does a phenomenal job, high character people, and everyone that I know within PBR in the 40 plus states are the same type of breed, and you know many of them. So you look at it, $200, that's all they're spending for 12 states. It's roughly 125 events that they can scout. They get player packets on all the events, and it's, I think, the question should have been, the tweet should have been, how are you doing this for $200? Versus why is it $200? But I think it's a great conversation. And listen, I am always willing to be the bridge over the gap. So I get there's college coaches that it's a tough time. I get that college coaches, college coaches have their budgets froze. I mentioned the other day, what we did was we said, hey, if your budgets are froze, we'll throw you an invoice. The company will throw you an invoice, and you can pay it in July or August when they're unfroze. So about 25 to 28 schools are doing that right now out of the 152 right now that are subscribed. It's totally different than a subscription, the PBR subscription. That's why it was more of a decision that I had to make, and the expense fell on my shoulders, and then we split it up amongst all the states. But that's my long-winded experience.
No, that's good. Welcome in Doug Freeman, who made it. His camera's off. Doug, hopefully. There he is. What's up, Doug?
Working on it here. Sorry.
That's
still
okay.
Calls, it's that time of year again where you've got tournaments and showcases, and everything is ever changing and a moving target here. So there's phone calls. You want to make sure you can take care of everybody as soon as you possibly can. They tend to run a bit longer than anticipated at times.
I needed Doug to come to soften this up, because Doug knows me, and my tweet was aggressive, and I didn't want to delete my tweet because there was so much there that I felt like, it's important. Let's let the discussion sit there, and let's not back down from the discussion. And, I don't regret it, because it brings us here, right? It brings us here to a table where we get to discuss some things and have some transparency about things that everybody wonders about, but they don't get to hear about, right? They don't understand maybe the business side of things. Everybody understands, I think I know everybody understands, like, life is a business, right? Everything is a business, and you try to do it for the best that you can for people. Well, some of you do, right? But at what point do we not understand what we're paying for, I think, is where the problem comes in, right? A lot of times. And so I guess one of the things, Dan, to go back to your question, and then Doug, I'll let Doug jump in here, but let him get his feet under him for what we're talking about here. One of my things is, like, okay, so yes, I agree. The package is great. Like, to have what you guys provide by far always has been the best price since you've been doing it. But what about the college coach? Like, I kind of feel like, are we pricing out certain colleges like we do with kids in travel? Because listen, on a normal day, I don't think $200 is a budget breaker for most people, but we know we're not in a normal day, right? So Dan, are we, I know for sure there's college coaches who are not willing to come out of pocket $200 when they're worried they even will have a job in a couple of months. So, like, what about it if we're possibly pricing out some schools from recruiting?
Well, I mean, that's valid, and that's obviously, it's got to be a personal decision on that coach or that staff. If they think that that's going over the limit. Like I said, I was a 25-year-old Division I recruiting coordinator, and I had to come out of pocket every weekend, and hopefully I got reimbursed 4 weeks later. So I think I averaged like $230 a weekend if I traveled to, like, Diamond Nation, because that was a 3-hour drive where I was at. Sometimes it was in upstate New York, so it was a little bit less, but you always had a hotel, you know, $120 a night. So I think when you really break down the 200, I think it should be a non-factor for anyone, really, any college program, because they can't spend money now anyways. I mean, they're not out recruiting. They're not out spending money on hotels and food and rental cars and flights. But what I think the point that you make that's really good is, what about that small school, that school that doesn't have a budget, the school that now the coaches feel like they're being left out because they don't have that to put in. But I think that's also why we do such a good job on social media. Go look at our Twitter right now in Pennsylvania. There's probably 25 to 35 pitching, hitting tweets. It's not everything. It's a small little look into the player. I think a college needs to see a lot more, but they can get a velocity quickly on a pitcher. Hey, 86, I think I probably want to look at that guy. Maybe I can get some contact information. They see BP, or they see something they like in a swing or defensively. I think those things we are constantly doing, and that's free. That's always been free. We work our butts off to be the greatest hype machines ever known. I mean, ask Doug, I'm insane. Like, I take this to a level of insanity, and it's for the players, it's for the coaches, and it's the competitiveness. I'm not playing baseball anymore for a living, but this is the second best thing ever. I mean, I worked in the oil field for a year and a half, 84 hours a week, swinging sledgehammers, operating cranes. I saw a side of what real life could be like. I am here to do the greatest thing I can for the sport. The game gave me a ton, gave me an opportunity to play professional baseball, and it's given me the opportunity to work with kids now and help them get to college, hopefully. I try to motivate through my Twitter account personally. So there's a lot of things I'm here to do for the right reasons. It's a business. When money's involved, people get a little weird. It's amateur baseball, so they get really weird at times, because there's a lot of people in our business that, are money grabs, people that are the fly-by-nighters, the circuses that are in town one day, they're gone the next. We work 24/7 in New York and PA. I got 4 full-time staff members. That's how they make a living, and we grind. And I think our staff and everyone around us knows that. Our following knows that. And I'm not defensive. I'm appreciative for the opportunity to do this, because I think it's going to really shed a light. And I think that you understand a little deeper, where I'm probably at.
Doug, we understand gypsies coming in Florida and fixing your roof after a hurricane, right? All those guys with the vans coming in, taking your money, and then leaving town without doing a good job. Doug, you've been at this for a while. You built it up really nice in Florida. I was out front on that on Twitter, talking about how awesome that event was you put on last week. What is it that, the PBR model is interesting, I find, and if we have time, I'd like to discuss it a little bit on how, states kind of run themselves. But for you, what is it that PBR does that has made you believe in it, and you put so much into it over the past couple of years that you're saying to yourself, yeah, this is different than what else is out there?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a couple points to touch on that, right? The reason why a lot of us, and you look at the guys like you mentioned, the states are different all around, and my resume doesn't stack up as much as Dan's there. I was a JUCO product, maybe got a award here or there, a Division II guy, and then played independent pro ball, and then coached at the junior college level. So, but with that being said, we did play at multiple levels, and that's the case throughout the country. And that was what really resonated with me when I jumped up from junior college coaching to this side of things. Was, it was operated by guys in the baseball realm that were respected. The opinions were respected because they were grounded in facts and grounded in an unbiased. And that's my speech every time I talk to parents. You may not love it every time, but you're going to get an unbiased quality evaluation. And now with the data and analytics, you're going to get accurate, verifiable data that because the only thing worse than no data is wrong data. So it's one of those where you want to make sure that you're accurate. So jumping on that.
Let me, before you go to your next point, you're way nicer nowadays than PBR was when they started. You look back at some of the original evaluations, and they were like as legit and true and could be hurtful to some people. I feel like you guys have lightened up a little bit on some of them, but I've given you credit for that, saying like, yeah, you can trust this, right? You can't say every kid is Lou Gehrig or Mike Trout or Kershaw, then you have no credibility when every kid is ranked in 8.5 or better.
Yeah, it's lightened up a little because we don't, you kind of learned along the way that there are things too that the kids, you see that they they need to work on and we need to touch on. But we are trying to promote the kids as well. But to that point is each state operates a little bit differently, and we're on this call because of a $200 thing. Quite frankly, every time that money is brought up in youth sports, it makes me chuckle a little bit, because imagine going into your dealership and being like, oh, I got to pay you to change and rotate my tires. You're doing a service and we pay. It's always kind of a little bit interesting to me, because college coaches at their core need to win baseball games. And right now, because they're not out on the road, they need to find a way to evaluate. And if that $200 price tag is too much for guys, that's unfortunate. That is. But there's a lot of ways to get around that, like Dan mentioned, with the coverage. So it's kind of whatever your appetite for risk is, right? At the end of the day, whether that's traveling whenever that's allowed, whether it's going out, whether it's not having a family life and going to every game. But to that point, our broadcast was something that was integrated from months prior to any of this. We a little bit of the Central Florida, a little bit of South Florida luck maybe, is that we had this prepared to execute well before any pandemic was in place. We had it budgeted in. We had all of those things accounted for prior to this. The service that Dan and the rest of our states are providing is ancillary. Now, after players had already signed up and didn't think that they were going to have a live broadcast because they assumed coaches were going to be able to be in attendance. And as Dan can tell you, I think he had 200 schools at his New York State games last year. So the need for this broadcast wasn't there because they were in attendance. So nobody wants to push more cost onto the players and parents. Luckily, most of these schools do have a budget. You're paying coaches. They need to do their job at some point in time, and there are fees and costs to that. So, at the end of the day, for us, and I can sleep well at night because I know that we're going out and doing everything in our power to make sure that the products that we provide are of a fair, in my mind, you can use the word fair a million different ways, but a quality value, a fair value, an honest value, and you're getting your money and time's worth. And if we can offer that, then I think that people can walk away and say, hey, that was worth that. Or the coach can walk away at the end of the summer and say, that $200, yeah, that was worth that, because we really got a lot of information out of it.
Listen, and again, Doug, you know that I'm on board with this because I've been sending players to you guys ever since I knew you existed. And I don't care. I'll throw the name out there. You guys do the same shit. You do a better job than Perfect Game, and you charge a third of what they charge. So I will continue to send kids there until it becomes fair. You don't have to throw the name out. I will. I don't care. Dan, one question though. Doug, did you want to say something?
No.
Oh, I thought you were intaking some breath there to unload some. Okay, Dan. Okay, another part of this being, all right, some coaches are obviously, because this is where it came from. I got messages about it, right? And after a few messages, I'm like, all right, let's throw some out on Twitter. Again, irresponsible on my part. I'll take it. That's fine. But here's another part of it, right? Kids are paying for exposure. Well, if the college coaches can't tune in, or a lot of them aren't willing to tune in, I mean, you're catering to the guys that have the budgets, the big schools of the world. What about those kids that are Division II, Division III, where those schools are not willing to pay $200? Are those kids getting the exposure that they're paying for at your event?
Well, yeah, I mean, they're getting everything that we say that we're going to give them. Originally, now a little bit more, because we're giving them the live broadcast. It's free to the parents and players. They're able to go back and watch their outing right now. A guy just hit a ball through the hole, through the 5-6 hole. So that guy just got that hit. He's gonna be able to go back and watch it tomorrow with mom and dad, grandpa, whatever. That wasn't part of the deal. I didn't know I was gonna have to spend a lot of money on equipment. I didn't know I was gonna have to hire more manpower to operate it, which we're going through some kinks. So there could be some colleges that are tuning in. I've talked to a few today. They're like, hey, give me some suggestions. They're showing, we're trying to work through it. I don't have Doug's like ESPN broadcast thing going on. Like, that is amazing what Doug has going on down there. I'm doing this for every event that I do. I would be on the street corner if I did the operation that Doug does, that he just did for his big events. You know, because I think now it's cool. It's like, this may be where recruiting's headed. It could be headed to this direction. I will say this: we have like 30 Division III schools signed up for it. 30. So those D3 players, yeah, they're going to get seen by some very good Division III schools.
And I'm sorry, you published that list, right? You put out who signed up, so like the kids know I'm going to be in front of these schools or whatever.
Yeah, we did, because for once in my 6 years of doing this, I felt the need to use that as a little bit of as a power chip to say, listen, not only are we going to put on the most professional showcase environment that you've ever been to, where we care deeply about the results and the experience, but we also can now say, listen, we know because colleges can't be there, we still have these schools that actually paid to see you. Okay, so they care enough about the players in those states to where they're willing to spend it. So it's not just the big Power 5 schools that are in this. Oh no, I mean, there's 4 junior colleges. Think about it, junior college. I was a junior college head coach, and I don't even know if they knew what a recruiting budget was at my school. So these guys are probably coming out of pocket. We have D3 schools that are doing it. We have a lot of D2 schools doing it. So I think it is fair to say it's going towards those guys that can quickly put the credit card out, right? The big Power 5s and the other big, big name schools. But it's such an easy, soft price that I think if a coach is really complaining about it, I don't know. I think maybe there needs to be some sort of evaluation in the mirror and say, are we really that upset about this? Like, look what we're potentially getting, from that.
I think in terms of the kid, because I can't argue as much for the coach paying $200 as I can for the kid getting the exposure that they're paying for, right? Because just to go to an extreme, if no college coaches pay for it, then the kid doesn't get the exposure, like, to go to an absolute extreme. But I think if you're putting the list out there like you're doing, that's a huge thing, because I always talk about, like, if you're going to go to a showcase, make sure you know what colleges are going to be there, and not just what coach are they sending? Are they sending the volley to pick up a check, or are they sending their recruiting coordinator? So I think if the list is out there, that's fair. Doug, this is a huge opportunity for PBR for what you're doing. This whole situation this year, like, I have so many ideas running through my head. I'm going to let you, how is this such a big opportunity for the future of you? I mean, part of me is looking at it like, could this eliminate travel baseball? Like, in a sense, like, can't you just run showcases and play games and broadcast it all the time and accomplish what travel baseball accomplishes?
We can accomplish a picture of baseball. You can't accomplish what baseball is meant to be. There's a reason why there's 162 games at the major league level and 50 plus games in college, and there's a reason why you play a lot of baseball games, because you only get better at baseball by playing baseball. And as much as I would love to do 100 plus showcase games with live broadcast, and as much as I love jumping on the broadcast and interacting with guys like you and coaches and parents and all of that, these kids need to go out and play. And I actually heard it on one of your podcast things that you had done, and it's a great point, where these kids, there's a lot of times where you're going to showcase, and traditional summer, you're always asking who's going to be there. Well, there's not going to be anybody there. So who's going to go out and compete and win baseball games? Because there's certain guys that are going to benefit from that portion of it as well, because we do tournament, and it's all anybody in this space. We can sit here and, whoa, it's me. Oh, hey, we had to try to adjust. There's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of disconnect of trying to figure out the new ways of doing this. But no matter what the scenario is, I think that there's benefits in any scenario, right? There was a benefit if there was 100 coaches at a showcase, but now there's also a benefit because you can get exposure on a live broadcast from coast to coast, and it can be on there at any time. So for me, it's a matter of, I think there's benefits for people that are going out there and trying to produce things in a manner that feels like it's the best case scenario for everybody, no matter what that scenario is, right? If we were going to, Dan was going to, you know, produce an event regardless of the scenario, pandemic, good, bad, and that was the best possible solution, the best possible platform for players. Same scenario now, right? So those opportunities are going to continue to arise by people just doing the right things. I've been down here in Florida, and you know, if you've been down in Florida, there's a lot of people, like, right, wrong, indifferent, whatever you want to call it. Like, you go out and you really try to do things as best as you possibly can to help promote the players. It's taken a few more years than I would have liked it to, but you start seeing guys go, oh, you go to a PBR event and you walk away and you feel like your time was well spent and your money was well spent. Regardless.
Go ahead, Dan.
I think too. I love travel baseball because exactly what Doug said. You have to play. You have to play. You can't showcase your whole career because there's a lot of things inside the game that you learned, quick adjustments, those things on the fly that you learn playing the game. So I'm a huge advocate for the high school game, for the travel ball. I love the travel coaches. I get along, like I told you, I get along with everyone because that's my personality, but also it's my job. My job is to make sure that I'm always going to be the bridge between the gap. And there's always going to be the high school coach and the travel coach and the travel coach and the other travel coach and this showcase company and this showcase company and this tournament company and that tournament company. And what do? I try to make sure everyone knows I am here to be an advocate for youth baseball in New York and Pennsylvania. And yes, I am a business, a for-profit business, but I'm very proud of what I do. And I am very happy that I can offer jobs to people and they can actually put food on their tables because of something that I've been able to create inside those two states. So I'm just, I'm excited for the future. I think this is where some of this is headed. It gives some of those smaller schools, I think, more of an opportunity to see more players, right? Like, instead of looking at it from the negative side, let's flip the coin and say, this small D3 school could spend $200 and never leave his office and spend $1 in a hotel, spend $1, on food. He can be around his family a lot more, and he can see really quality players, get all the contact information, go on the website, look at the metrics, look at the stats. Hey, if you look at it that way, it's a pretty darn good deal.
Right. I'm with you on the bridging the gap part of things for sure, and being the middleman. I explain it that I'm in a boxing ring and you have college coaches over there, travel teams over there, families over there, high school, and we're just in the middle, trying to facilitate and communicate, because I think that's the biggest breakdown in everything right now is like, there's those 4 corners, 5 corners, whatever, and they don't communicate. They don't understand each other. That's the problem. Everybody, like Doug said, is woe is me. So Dan, I know you got to go, but before you go, Dan, and then I could ask Doug a couple questions, even if you got to run. What does the future look like? Like, what is this experience right now telling you, hey, here's what the future is going to look like for us, or here's an avenue we can go down?
Well, Doug missed this, but I'm actually in Pennsylvania at the Pennsylvania State Games. I got 356 of the best players in the Keystone State. I'm in Du Bois, Pennsylvania, like hard-nosed, gritty town. It's like just they love baseball here. So the future is great. Okay, the future is great. Within a national emergency, what the last few months have been testing, trying, the craziest in my 36 years, honestly. But we're out here playing baseball. We're able to adjust. That's what making the adjustments is all about. We're able to make an adjustment and still provide a great experience for the kids. So I think the future is good. I think technology is in the game heavy. When I played, I got drafted in 2002. There was no spin rate. You know how you knew if you had a good spin rate? You got swing and misses. And that's how it was as a pitcher. I pitched for a long time, and if the batter would tell me how good my stuff was. Fortunately for the player now, we have technology that can tell you where you're at and what you need to do to get better, and it's a quicker. You can get a lot better quicker. So I think technology is the way the game is headed, and I'm okay with that. I'm not that old, but I would consider myself an old school baseball guy. I learned everything I know from my grandfather, who's in his 80s, and you know, if I talked about TrackMan and blast motion and all these things with him, he'd probably croak. So, you know, we keep those conversations quiet. It's not the game he played and learned. It's not the game I learned, but I'm very invested in that game right now. And that's where it's headed. I think, you know, the live streaming of events and allowing coaches the video vault, which is where they can go back, they can watch it 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, they can get on our social media and Twitter, and that's changed the game. You don't even have to come to our events. You can just sit back and watch our Twitter feed, watch the live feed on the social media, whatever it is. You can take advantage if you're a college coach, if you're a player, if you're a parent, if you're a business person, you can take advantage of this opportunity in a great positive way. And I think that's what I've tried to do. I have a few more minutes, but I think the game's headed in a positive direction despite the major league level. I think the youth game is very strong. It's vibrant. I think kids love it. You got to see the faces out here. These kids have been locked up for 3 months. They're so excited. I've had so many parents say, thank you, Dan, for putting this on and finding a way. We don't care if we have to stand 20 feet apart from people. We don't care if we hand sanitize till our fingerprints come off. They just want to play baseball. So I'm glad that I can be a part of that, honestly.
Well, hang in there with us as long as you can. When you got to go, let me know, because I do have one more question for you. But, Doug, I wanted to ask you about something I've been asking a lot of college coaches. You're on the front lines, and you see this, though. This trend, because it's happening in Florida more than anywhere else, and it's starting. This trend of leaving high school baseball in favor of academy baseball. And did you start – I could be wrong. Did you start an academy league or something this year?
Yeah, we had an academy baseball league that had 8 academies across the southeastern United States. So, yeah,
okay,
definitely an option.
Okay, so tell me, why are people doing this? Not whether you agree or disagree, but why are you seeing academies pop up more and more?
I mean, the more you're specializing in things, the more you're going to have coaches that, you know, are full-time guys. Unfortunately, a lot of the high schools across the country have guys that are, you know, making $2,500 stipends and working as, you know, whether they're a teacher or whatever else job they're able to do to make ends meet. Unfortunately, their full attention is not in the players in their organization at all times. That is not a knock on it. I mean, high school baseball coaches do an amazing job, regardless of the scenario. But I think for certain players that, I mean, it takes a special kid, right? Like it's a really unique situation. You're not in class, you're on virtual school a lot of times, and you are out of the baseball field at 10, 11, 12 o'clock. And you kind of saw that starting with the IMGs of the world, where they really special in sports like tennis, that really specialization was kind of on the front and center. And baseball has started to see, whether you agree or disagree, more and more specialization in playing baseball year round. And when you see that, I think you're going to see, like Dan said, people, you know, provide opportunities for kids who want to do it. I think that's as simple as it comes, is kids want to be able to play baseball all day, every day. And these are an option for guys that feel like, you know, hey, I really need to develop. I really need somebody that's, you know, focused in on my baseball development as well as school, but really focused in on my baseball development. 365, basically. I mean, that's kind of how I've seen it. And for me, you know, in the league that we did, it was a matter of making those games competitive and mean something, because that was kind of the big knock that you saw, is that they just played a one-off junior college game, or, you know, kind of the schedule of games didn't necessarily have that state title feel, which I think is very, very important at the high school level. And I think, you know, being able to provide some additional structure and a setup for those teams, you know, continue to help grow, you know, if that's an option that people have, right? Like Dan said, that's one of those subjects that you go, I love high school baseball, man. I love the state championship and you want to play. But I think the guys that do these academies are doing it. They feel like they're doing it for the right reasons as well. So, you know, you want to be able to, I want to just be able to cover as much baseball as humanly possible. So for me, I saw an opportunity to see a lot of players and provide a structure and help that, you know, provide that within the PBR framework, which for me, hey, come on, let's set it up. You want to do it? You want to play high-end baseball? You want some exposure? You want us to cover it? You want us to be there? You let me know. Like Stan said, I've got 4 full-time staff members. I'm on the road tomorrow again. I'm on the road for 3 weeks. I'm in boxes here and there, and we're ready to go. I mean, that's the big thing. So
let me ask you, Dan, you're getting wiggly over there. You got to go?
I got a couple minutes.
Okay. Doug, let me ask you this then about that. In your evaluations of players, do you see any difference in their skill progressions for the guys that stay in high school versus the guys that are going academy? Like, are guys in academy looking like they're getting better at a faster rate than the guys in high school, or you haven't seen any of that just yet?
I think it's a little early to tell that right now, just because of the short time window of we've seen that, right? I think some of the physicality maybe a little sooner, just because they have a little bit more regimented strength and conditioning program than you may see at a traditional high school. Some high schools do an incredible job with it, like I said, but I think this is for those individuals that maybe not have that type of regiment. Then yeah, I mean, I think that there are some strength gains. I think skill-wise, you got to play baseball, and regardless of where you are, if you're playing more baseball, you're going to get better. And the guys that are more athletic and playing more often and putting the time in on their own are going to get better at the same rate, regardless of whether it's with a school or they're trying, putting the work in on their own. Like Dan said, we went out to the local field and just threw the baseball all the time when I was growing up and hit as much as you could till your hands bled, and you figured it out. If you were good enough, you moved on. I think you still see those kids that just grind it out on their own progress, but I do think the structure helps some kids progress, especially physically.
Dan, our last question for you. How is PBR going to be the logo on the MLB draft in 5 or 10 years instead of what we're seeing right now?
Well, I don't have the answer to that, but I tell you what, if they did, they'd be getting, I think, the best independent scouting service there is. I mean, when you really piece it all together and you look at the amount of boots on the ground soldiers that we have across the country, I think, what is it, Doug, 42, 43 states?
Yeah, I think we're at 44 now, but I think
when you just factor in, I mean, we scout the high school season, that's not a cost to the player. We do that. That's something that we love doing. We go out and scout this year we didn't. Last year we had in New York, we had 500 kids in a scout blog in 6 weeks. So we had 11 scouts out scouting games every night, when they played in high school, putting it out on Twitter, putting it out on the scout blog on our website. I think that we could do that. There's many times I get text messages from the Northeast scouts. I know all of them. And we're seeing a guy that they haven't even seen before, and he's 88, 90. And now he's a guy that they can go follow. I think that we would be a tremendous asset to big league programs, just with the amount of baseball guys that we have in our organization. I mean, Doug said it a little bit ago, but from the top, from the highest level of headquarters, we have high character, high quality baseball guys. I mean, it's really that simple. Like I said, I was a third round draft pick and played a long time professionally, and I could go coach in pro ball. I could scout in pro ball, and I'm here. I'm doing this because making that impact on a kid's life is a little bit more rewarding for me where I'm at right now in my life. So back to your question, Major League Baseball should use us, and we would do a tremendous job.
I think that, you said something there that was when Doug and I remember, this is going to be weird to Doug, but I actually remember the drive I was taking the first time that I ever connected with Doug on the phone and the conversation we had. And the one thing that stuck out to me the most was that we will rank players and cover players that do not pay to go to our events. That was the one thing that still sticks with me today. Doug, to you, why should PBR be the one that MLB draft is using?
Well, first off, because most people clearly remember the first time that they spoke with me on the phone. Vivid, one of those check mark type events.
It was a big moment in my life.
I'm glad to be a part of it. And, I think, like you said, we have guys on the ground constantly. I think there's a reason, again, I go back to, there's a reason why really successful companies and organizations do things. And there's a reason why Major League Baseball organizations and scouts are regionalized, and why they have guys in local areas, and why they have cross-checkers and national guys, and why our setup mirrors that very well. There's no longer a Major League Scouting Bureau. They have a lot of guys that are going out trying to do video and evaluations. We're a resource for that people can trust. And as Dan mentioned, guys, you know, we're in contact with, whether it's pro scouts, college scouts, all the time. And it's, you know, when you have a resource that sees guys on a much regular basis, regardless of where they're playing, I think that creates a much more accurate picture. None of us are perfect. We're obviously going to like guys more sometimes. If they come to my event and you're a great kid and I get to interact with you a bunch of times, it's probably human nature that I may bump you up a couple spots just because I don't know. It's not a knock, man, but I don't know you. I know this.
Them. Yeah.
And but at the end of the day, we do try to take a cumulative look of all of our looks, and we get a lot of them. And I think that's the big picture.
Dan, final words today. We're going to end with you, man.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk about this. I think, you know, there's healthy discussion is what this country needs in general. And I think we avoided what could have been a really ugly situation with doing something like this. I appreciate Doug coming on and you know, just giving his perspective. I appreciate you kind of looking at the other sides of the story as well and kind of saying, hey, you know, maybe, you know, these guys are really in it for the, you know, the right reason, not only 95% of the time, but 100% of the time. So I'm thankful for that. Honestly, I'm here at my biggest event and I wanted to take 30 minutes of my time to hit that point home. I got to get back to my staff. I got to get back to my players, but I thank you for the opportunity to let our side of the story be said.
No, for sure. You guys do an excellent job, and I felt bad for upsetting the apple cart because you do a really good job. And I got blocked by I-95 Metro, and that says something. To me, that says something. When what the content I'm putting out is trying to educate people on things, and companies then block and say, oh, we don't want this guy around our stuff. I feel like they're hiding something. When you guys come on here and say, yeah, let's do it, let's talk about it, you obviously have nothing to hide. You 100% believe in what you're doing. You're doing it the right way. And I think that this is healthy to do. So I appreciate both of you guys. Doug, any last words?
No, I think transparency is a big thing, right? Transparency and accountability in anything we do. And we're glad to get on and answer questions.
Yeah.
Just about anything. So thank you very much.
Doug, you're going to make me piss more people off because I'm holding everybody to the standard that you set last week with that amazing event. So bullshit phones set up in the press box ain't going to work this summer. And if you do it, then you're just ripping people off. So thank you for setting that standard. And you guys be easy, get back to your events, and we'll be in touch.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. See you, Doug.
See ya.